After 70 years of age, the elderly made a bold decision to become an intern at this e-commerce company with an average age of no more than 30 years old. His boss is a picky 90s female powerhouse, and you can never imagine what kind of sparks they will spark with a 40-year age difference. Lao Ben used to be the general manager of a printing factory. His wife passed away many years ago, and his children started their own families. After retirement, my life is to practice Tai Chi every day, and then go out for a walk to pass the time. The long life seems to have reached its end, but it always feels like there are some voids that need to be filled. I happened to see a company on the street recruiting elderly interns, and my friend advised him not to take it for granted. This company is all born in the 1990s, and even resumes are required to be sent in video format. You don't even know how to use a smartphone, but the boss has already decided to go to work, not because he is short of money. Each tie he wears is equivalent to our monthly salary, and he has a whole cabinet of such ties. He even bought a camera and even marked a paragraph in Chinese when introducing himself. With this fluent Chinese sentence, the boss quickly got a trial opportunity. On his first day at work, his formal attire and pale hair seemed out of place with the tech-savvy office. Other young people's office equipment includes power banks, data cables, USB drives, as well as shawang and a smartphone. On the other hand, looking at the old equipment, a faulty elderly flip phone, a calculator, reading glasses, and a small alarm clock, when I first used the new laptop, it didn't even know how to turn it on. It was my colleague next to me who gestured to him and learned how to operate it. Unfortunately, such an elderly person who appeared to be behind the times was arranged to work as an intern under the founder Anne. Annie is a woman with a strong career ambition. From 25 people when she founded the company to 220 people now, it only took a year and a half for her to grow. She worked many tasks herself, and in order to save time, she rode a bicycle in the office, which led to her assistant reporting work to her, and she could only chase and run. Before reporting to Annie, the boss specifically approached her assistant and asked what to pay attention to.
She talks fast. She hates slow talkers. Maybe that's just when I talk slow. Don't dawdle in any way. Just keep it moving, and don't forget to blink. Yeah, she hates when people don't blink. It weird. But it's 3:57. This meeting that she's in just took up like 2 of your 5. They're out. You go.
So, old Ben walked into the office nervously, as rumored, and is a difficult woman. She came straight to the point and told Ben that recruiting senior interns is just to set an example for society and follow the trend, so she won't assign them any work. Old Ben tried hard to blink his eyes, trying to get Anne's favor, but even so, and still had no intention of assigning him work, just asking him to return to his workstation and wait for the email. When leaving, I never forget to ask if the door needs to be closed.
Doesn't matter. Open, actually. You get used to me.
In just 2 minutes of meeting, Annie's impression of old Ben was not bad, but after waiting for several days, her email was almost spider web, and she had not received any work arrangements. However, she was still enthusiastic and never practiced blinking in the mirror before her boss left work. She woke up on time in the morning to welcome the new day's work. Take the initiative to help with shipping when there is nothing to do, or learn new knowledge from colleagues, or share your past sales experience. Sometimes and doubted why the intern was even busier than herself, and after many days, Ben finally received his first email. It turned out that the female assistant needed her help to take the sample jacket from Anne. At this moment, Anne is in the conference room, and investors believe that he lacks management skills. They plan to parachute in a CEO to share his work, which is equivalent to handing over the baby they raised themselves. Annie felt reluctant, but she was powerless because the current intensity of work really left him exhausted. Old Ben happened to come in at this moment and heard their conversation, while Anne had already shed tears of unwillingness.
I mean, give me CEO lessons, you know?
Excuse me. I apologize, but Becky said you needed something taken care of on your jacket.
Oh, right.
Lao Ben pretended to have just entered, without expressing any questions or concerns, and quickly left with his clothes. The assistant asked him what was happening inside, and he pretended that he didn't hear anything behind his ears. Bosses can be considered the workplace handling method of educational books. After most people finished work, Ben noticed Anne wiping tears alone in the conference room and decided to do something for this girl. The company originally had a table filled with miscellaneous items, which was Anne's most troublesome area, but the next day when he came to the company, the table had already been completely refreshed. I only learned from my colleague that old Ben, who had been overlooked by him, came to clean up at 7 o'clock. Then,
You're in
Whitaker. Someone's very happy.
Brilliant. Thank you. Best thing that's happened around here all week.
Old Ben won the applause of the whole audience, and his warm actions made and have a happy start to a new day. According to the company's welfare system, Lao Ben received a massage reward. Fiona, who was of similar age, caught Lao Ben's eye. After being single for many years, he couldn't help but feel the long-lost old dear colliding in his heart. The two exchanged phone numbers with each other. Working with young people seems to bring a second spring to my old life. His disciplined lifestyle has won the admiration of his colleagues. A few people walking together, like F4 left in the company. At noon, Old Ben noticed that Anne's driver was drinking, and Anne was also planning to go out for a meeting. Old Ben, who detected safety hazards, was the first to find the driver. I don't
want to make you feel uncomfortable, but I just happened to have looked out the window and it appeared you were drinking something from a paper bag.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Why don't you tell her you can't drive her today or I'm going to have to?
He left a step for the driver, and the rest depends on what the driver wants to do. After getting Annie into the car, he turned around and glanced at Old Ben. Old Ben's eyes became more serious, and the driver had to take a day off citing physical discomfort.
To do this, but I'm actually not feeling so hot. Not sure I should be driving. I wouldn't want to give you anything.
Sure. No, you should take the day off and feel better, okay?
The boss naturally became a temporary driver, and then wanted to meet the new CEO in the city. He was reluctant, but there were indeed some problems with the company's management. In just a few minutes of driving, he not only had to deal with his mother's greetings, but also coordinated the company's miscellaneous matters. After arriving at the destination, Annie told the boss that the meeting would take an hour, and he could return to the company first. After that, he could take a taxi back by himself. An hour later, and returned with a dark face, clearly having a difficult conversation with the new CEO. The boss didn't inquire about the progress of the work, just told Annie that there was a chicken soup in the back row. I just heard from Anne's conversation with her mother that he hasn't had lunch yet.
Oh my god, that smells so good.
On the way, Annie complained to her partner that the new CEO was an unreliable person, but in reality, he was resisting the person who wanted to take the company away. Old Ben remained silent all along, but even after delivering in home, he couldn't help but speak up.
You started this business all by yourself a year and a half ago, and now you have a staff of 220 people. Remember who did that?
Oh.
And I hate to say it, but try to get some sleep.
Annie's family is a typical male lead, and female lead. Her husband quit his job to take care of the children at home, and her success in her career has left her with less time to take care of the family. Even when she goes to bed at night, she worries about the company's affairs, and the couple has little space to get along with each other. At the same time, Old Ben received a call from his assistant, stating that due to Anne's driver's sudden resignation, Old Ben will need to continue working as a driver for another day tomorrow. The next morning, Ben arrived at Anne's house and quickly returned to the car after ringing the doorbell. At that moment, Anne's husband stopped her, saying that Anne had not woken up yet. He invited Ben to come over for a cup of coffee. Ben said he could wait in the car, but Anne's husband insisted that she come in. It's all up to this point, and she's too embarrassed to refuse. Old Ben met Anne's daughter, and the little princess liked this kind grandfather very much. However, Anne was startled. He didn't like his colleagues to get involved in his own life. Old Ben understood this, so he solemnly said money in the car. Annie said it's okay, but in fact, she sent a text message to the HR department asking them to transfer Ben to another position because he felt that Ben liked to observe people too much. Although Ben didn't do anything beyond the boundaries, many eye contact made him feel uncomfortable. Old Ben was not aware of this, he only knew that Anne was a serious and responsible boss. In order to give customers a pleasant surprise when receiving packages, Anne would personally go to the warehouse to teach the workers how to package them. In Old Ben's eyes, meticulousness was the key to Anne's success, so he increasingly appreciated this young and promising girl. Anne worked late that day and accidentally looked up to find that only her old boss had not left yet. It was obvious that the other party was waiting for him, so Anne expressed her gratitude with drinks and food. The two abandoned their hierarchical relationship and began chatting. Annie is very curious about what work her husband was doing before retiring. Lao Ben said that he once worked as a general manager in a printing factory, mainly responsible for sales and advertising business. Annie remembered that this place used to be a printing factory. Old Ben pursed his lips, everything remained silent. Annie suddenly realized something.
No. What? What? This is where you worked?
For almost 40 years, yeah. For 20-some years, I sat right by that window. That was my office. It was a few steps up back then. You could look out over the whole factory. Our printing presses were in that corner. That's why the floor dips back there.
No way.
I know everything about this building. Or used to. You know the sycamores on the other side of the building, the big one?
Yeah, the big one. I love them.
Yeah, I remember the day they were planted.
He devoted 40 years of his time in this building, and when he comes back here 40 years later, he still has a feeling of returning home. Time is like a circle, spinning around, and he has become a small employee at that time, and was deeply touched by the conversation about not talking about work. At the same time, he noticed that old Ben was registering a social account on his computer, and it was obvious that he was currently facing some difficulties. So he took out his phone to take a profile picture of old Ben, and as for personal information, he helped fill in whatever old Ben said. For example, marital status, favorite books, and movies. Annie found that even though they were 40 years apart, they still had many similar hobbies. Communicating with mature people made him feel more comfortable than ever before, and for the first time, he slept recklessly in the car.
We're here? Was I snoring?
Just sleeping.
I never fall asleep in the car, so that was actually amazing. Apologize for the racket.
Yeah, we know.
After this night's understanding, Anne's resistance to old Ben was completely resolved, and he began to appreciate this old man because he could handle everything perfectly. The next day, Anne got into the car with great enthusiasm, but the driver was replaced by another elderly intern. He finally realized that it was the old driver he had transferred from yesterday. The new driver not only didn't recognize the road, but also almost caused a car accident. In the end, Anne had to drive it herself. After arriving at the company, he quickly went to apologize to old Ben, who had already been assigned to buy coffee for other colleagues.
I think I'm demented.
Not the word I would use, but I was a little surprised when I got the call. Jules, I apologize if I overstepped and so.
No, please don't apologize. You have done nothing wrong.
Annie quickly explained that she was too concerned about privacy at the time, which was why she made this decision, but now it seems that he was wrong.
I hope you'll accept my apology and come back to work. For me. If you want, and I'm not just saying this because I screwed up this morning, but I was thinking that, oh God, I can't tell you how much I hate that I jumped the gun and I made you feel.
I'm coming back. I'm happy to come back.
Excellent. Can I give you a lift back to the office?
Sure. Can I take this?
No.
So, Lao Ben became Anne's intern again and was promoted to the position of first assistant, assigned to the workstation in front of Anne. After this operation, the female assistant completely collapsed. He had a business degree and worked 14 hours a day, but he never received Anne's favor. Now being squeezed away by an old man who is several decades older than you and has difficulty hearing, would you collapse like him if it were you? The boss understands his feelings very well.
Let's get through this stuff. Let's do it together. Let's clean slate.
Just do it. In marketing data, Lao Ben found that the company's advertising placement is not directly proportional to revenue, and there is still a lot of room for optimization. Finally, he didn't forget to mention the credit of the female assistant and reminded Annie that this girl has a business degree. Annie understood.
I'll say something to her.
That would be very nice.
On this day, there was a technical issue on the company's website. Just as Anne was anxiously coordinating her work, her mother called again. Anne had no intention of answering her cold and warm questions, but her mother was angry because of her perfunctory behavior. 2 mobile phones switched back and forth for communication, and I didn't forget to complain to my partner about my mother halfway through. Just as Anne stepped in front of the company, she realized that the complaint she had just made was accidentally sent to her mother's email. If she were to be seen, the mother-daughter relationship would be in jeopardy. Annie immediately summoned the entire company's technical team, hoping that they could hack into mom's email and delete that email. But such a request is obviously somewhat difficult for others, but fortunately, old Ben came up with the most primitive way.
Me and the boys take off. We break into your mom's house and we steal her computer.
Break into her house and steal the computer? Are you kidding me? It's freaking genius.
So F4 immediately mobilized and Annie coordinated remotely to give them the address. According to my mother's habit, the keys would be hidden under the flower pot, but when they arrived, all that came into view were the flower pot. Time was tight, and every second was precious. They had no other choice but to search through them one by one. After countless attempts, they finally discovered the keys. However, as soon as I opened the door, I heard the anti-theft alarm ringing in the kitchen. Xiaopang and her eyes were instantly flustered, and the usually calm and composed boss was also flustered. He quickly called to inquire about N's password. If it was not released within 60 seconds, the alarm would automatically sound. Annie understands her mother's stinginess and says that the alarm must be a fake bought online. Even now, we can't care whether it's true or false. We need to quickly find a computer to talk about it. But they found 2 computers at the same time and quickly asked Annie which one it was. Why we need a...
The white one or the silver one? White one or the silver one? Your mom's computer? Yes. It's white. I got it fixed for her once. I'm positive.
3-1. Just as they were about to take action, the alarm began to sound. Oh my.
God.
I knew there was no such thing as a fake alarm. We're gonna get arrested. I knew it. That's it. We're dead. Your fingerprints are all over this place.
Ben, do you see the email?
Yeah. Double time it, dude. At me.
Fortunately, my glasses remained calm in the face of danger. After deleting the email, I didn't forget to empty the recycle bin to ensure everything was safe before putting my computer back in its original place. At this moment, the siren of a police car had already sounded outside, and old Ben immediately led the crowd to evacuate. However, the following Xiao Shuai was immersed in the hospital and completely unaware of the outside world. In the end, a few people successfully evacuated and the crisis was finally resolved. They cheered in the bar to celebrate this victory. Annie sincerely thanks everyone for their help. After experiencing this thrilling burglary, they can also be considered close friends, and drank more and more, and seeing these fierce men in front of her, she couldn't help but marvel at the gender discrimination she had encountered in the workplace. Old Ben understood that he had almost finished drinking, so he promptly called off the party. Sure enough, as soon as she left, and vomited like a human. She kindly handed over a handkerchief, and the long-term pressure left and gasping for breath. The last time she got drunk was even after graduating from college. He is seen as a successful woman by others, but what success sacrifices is time for family reunion. It seems that few people can find a balance between career and family. Annie gradually realized that giving up all the management of the company might be a good solution. The boss remained silent, silently listening to his ideas. Whenever Annie thought something was worth it, he would support it. On that day, old Ben helped pick up the little princess and saw Anne's husband getting into another woman's car from afar. Old Ben's heart was filled with mixed emotions. If it were anyone else, he could pretend not to see this scene, but the one who was lost in the valley was his most admired Anne. After returning to the company, Annie happily told him that she would go to San Francisco tomorrow to meet with another presidential candidate. He invited Ben to join him on this trip. At this moment, old Ben's mind was full of the scene from earlier. He wanted to speak up, but he was afraid of hurting Anne. Despite having 70 years of life experience, he couldn't solve this problem at this moment. Annie noticed his abnormality and thought it was a business trip that caused his discomfort.
I can go by myself, okay? I'm a big girl. I'll be fine.
Finally, he accompanied Anne on the plane to San Francisco. After struggling for a long time, old Ben finally planned to tell the truth, but when it came to his mouth, it was still so difficult to speak.
What are we doing here? We got the day off. We're traveling in first class. Let's at least have a little fun.
Not that I can do.
At this moment, and is full of expectations for the future, and he really can't bear to pour a bucket of cold water at this time. At night, and felt uneasy and invited the old man to chat in his own room. They lay on the bed, as if both of them were worried. Annie asked about old Ben's marriage and he wanted to know how excellent a wife should be for someone like old Ben.
She was. Molly was her name. She was a middle school principal. Beloved.
So perfect. Long marriage?
Not long enough. 2 years.
After 42 years of companionship, old Ben still thinks it's not long enough. He and his wife met at the age of 20 and went through so many years of wasted time together. When his wife passed away, he still felt that she had not changed. Annie envies Lao Ben's marriage because he is currently facing huge challenges.
I got a weird one for you. Matt is cheating on me.
Wait a minute. You know about this?
What does that mean? You know about this?
I saw them together.
Oh my God, when?
Yesterday. I'm sorry. I mean, it was an accident that I saw them, but...
Yesterday. And it is still going on.
Actually, Anne had been sneaking a peek at her husband's phone half a month ago. At that time, she was only focused on solving company management problems, so she temporarily put aside family issues. In fact, she didn't know what to do now. Before starting a business, her husband's job was more stable than her own. In order to help Anne's career, her husband sacrificed his work and took care of children at home. Although Anne knew that the mistake in this matter was with her husband, she still felt guilty. He suddenly made up his mind to change the CEO, which was also a desperate move to save his marriage. At least he could retain some of his energy in life, but old Ben told him that there was no need to make excuses for the other party's mistakes.
That's it. I hate to be the feminist here between the two of us, but you should be able to have a huge career and be who you are without having to accept that your husband is having an affair or some kind of payback.
Right on.
Annie doesn't want to leave, but he still has a daughter and his busy work leaves him with no energy to get married in the latter half of his life. The more he thinks about the future, the less he dares to take this step, because he is afraid of dying alone and afraid that after his death, he will only be buried with strangers. Let's
take that one off right now. You can be buried with me and Molly. I happen to have space, okay?
Thank you so much. And I think I didn't even want to hire you.
The one time I don't have my hanky.
Old Ben had been by Anne's side all night, and her heart couldn't calm down for a long time. It wasn't until Anne fell asleep that she secretly wiped away her tears. The next day, Anne met with a new candidate. Old Ben could see that she was very satisfied with this person. Now she could finally hand over the company with peace of mind. After returning home, Anne told her husband about this decision. She happily expressed that she would have the energy to take care of the family in the future and did not expose her husband's disguise. She pinned all her hopes on her own change. However, in fact, she did not know if she would tell little Anne that the company was her dream and she had too much reluctance. The next morning, she took the initiative to find her old home and wanted to hear how this godfather-like man felt about her decision. Old Ben said that he still remembers the first time he sent Anne to the warehouse. He knew why and succeeded, and no one could do it more meticulously than him.
You should feel nothing but great about what you've done. And I'd hate to see you let anyone take that away from you.
Actually, Anne already has an answer in her heart. What she wants to hear is what Ben said. After returning to the company, Anne immediately called the new CEO, intending to tell her that she had changed her mind. At this moment, her husband suddenly appeared at the company and she wanted to say something to Anne. The two of them arrived at the conference room, and Anne felt uneasy inside. She knew her husband was going to discuss the topic of family, but she didn't know what the end would be like. The husband confessed his mistake as soon as he spoke, and she apologized to Anne, hoping for forgiveness.
I got lost. It's a confusing world out there, and who I am got messed up for a minute. And now I'm watching you, ready to give all this up for me. I will not let that happen. I love you, and I will do so much better if you'll let me. Please, Jules. Let me make
You know, it would be good if you carried a handkerchief.
As her husband turned around, Anne's heart not finally unraveled. Now he has finally found a balance between family and career, and can't wait to tell Ben, who is no longer at the workstation. In the end, he found old Ben who was practicing Tai Chi in the park. No need for Annie to speak up. Old Ben already understands what he wants to say. When you think it's comfortable to be with someone, it's actually just because that person's rank is higher than yours. At the end of the story, old Ben contacted the masseur who had caused him a lot of trouble. He ignored the joys and sorrows of life, and they didn't need grand oaths. With just one glance and a date, they became each other's twilight lovers. You see, there's no difference between the world starting at 70 and the world starting at 20. As long as you do what you love, stick to your original self, and treat life with a tolerant heart, everything will be better, right?